am Taylor, and you are listening to the Surviving Maine podcast. Today I'm speaking with the runner-up of Surviving Maine 2019, Mr. Gamebot himself, Cameron. Charming as fuck, as they say. Cameron was the only person other than Becky that I got to interview in person, which was really great. We used to live very close to each other, and I really wish we had hung out more, but alas, we did not. We'll hear more about the pre-Ponderosa Cam had with Tony, and definitely check out the Tony podcast for more on his experience. We will hear all about Cam's first impressions of his tribe mates, and how wrong he ended up being about some of them, and how the Lombard tribe's early disadvantages ended up turning into a pretty strong advantage. And of course, we will hear all about his strategic thinking and how he felt about losing to Brandon. But first, here is what Liza has to say about Cameron.
Cameron was my other win pick. I'd played with him in other games before, so I kind of knew where he was coming in at.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I know Cameron is. We played in Survivor Brooklyn South together. So I kind of knew where he was. And yeah, he's super physical, super strategic, really social, and also good at basically everything that you possibly can be good at in Survivor. Yeah, he's a super threat. I think probably from the very beginning, people started to recognize that he was a threat. Yeah, and then as well as like super smart and really good at the strategy and, you know, thinking out the numbers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Cameron was exactly what I anticipated.
Liza's other winner pick, Cameron. I guess she had some pretty good choices there. Becky and Cam were her winner picks. Neither one, so I guess not great picks, but they both made really deep runs. All right, here is my interview with Cameron. Okay, let's start off with day one. Wait, let me actually say hello and thank you for being here.
Of course, no, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So day one, when you arrived, what were your first impressions of the other people you saw?
Well, I didn't tell a lot of people this, but I actually arrived the night before. So I came in from the Boston area. So the way that the travel was going to work out, it would have been a real difficult travel day to come in the day of. So I planned my bus ride, and my train ride up the night before, and Liza picked me up around like 8 or so in Augusta, and she like offered for me to stay on location, which was awesome. When she picked me up, she gave me the surprise of saying someone else from the cast will also be staying in the house.
Oh my God.
You might see him, but you're not allowed to talk to him. So it really felt like the press where you're kind of like locked for a week at Survivor and you can't talk.
That's awesome. You got the pre-Ponderosa.
Yeah, the pre-Ponderosa. I sat, so I got there and got introduced to her mom and the dog. Pickles was awesome, and I played with the dog for a little bit, and then it was actually Tony who was there, and we made some quick eye contact, and then definitely no words were spoken, and I'm not sure if no words were spoken because we weren't allowed to talk, or later I found out Tony is just a very quiet guy anyways. So, but then we were there maybe 10 minutes before we got split up into our separate rooms. So it wasn't like there was a lot of time to do anything. But then the next morning we were up again and not talking and getting our packs ready, waiting for the first cast people to arrive, and actually Forrest was the first one to arrive. He hitchhiked in. I guess he said he got up at 4 a.m. And in a very Forrest manner, he was chatting with everyone from production that was already there, all Eliza's friends and family that were there. And it was almost hard not to chat. So we definitely exchanged a few words in the early game, and then quickly Liza split us up into staring into the woods, where I got to know that the 10 feet of forest for an hour and a half. I was standing there for a ridiculously long time because I was the first one in line. Tony was off doing something. I think he was getting changed or something, and so she put me in line before the first people even got there, like very quickly. So I was like, I had memorized those woods, and then after a while, I was like, definitely probably more likely than other people to like sneak a glance at everyone. So I kind of got my first impressions of the tribe that way. So like I remember Brandon was sitting next to me, or standing next to me rather. I think it was who was to my left? I think it was Jess maybe to my left, and then Nick a couple people down, and then I remember Sarah got there, and like I could only get like side glances of people, and so like I saw like the like flowy blonde hair, and I was like, oh no, like is she like ready for this? And then I met Sarah, and I was like, oh, she's definitely ready for this. But my first impressions were like, uh-oh, that one's gonna have a problem with this. She didn't seem like she was ready for it at all. And then I think Becca showed up, and I remember like I could hear her like she like changed a bunch of times. I think she like wasn't sure what outfit she wanted to bring out, because I could like hear them talk to the people like as they were going through their bags and stuff too. So I remember like thinking like, oh, like I don't know if she like maybe she's like the type of person who like waffles on decisions a lot or something. I was like, that's all I could do while I was sitting there is like make a lot of judgments about people. But I mean, they like all those melted away as soon as like we like took our blindfolds off into the middle of the field and had to like walk through the woods. I feel like then you started getting like real impressions of people, and we had our famous Lombard walk where we got lost for 35 minutes there.
How did you get lost?
So our wonderful production helper Amy, who was super sweet, so nice to us, like it was awesome. I don't think anyone told her where to go, and so she was just like, okay guys, I guess we're just gonna like walk to the woods and go and find. She said that we were going to go find our camp. So like we were looking for a camp. So we thought we were ready to like see a tribe flag or something like that. And then we got confused. I'm sure these aren't for us, but they were a bunch of like little pieces of plastic tied to the trees to like mark which paths are which paths. And so we were wearing blue. So there was a like pinkish color, and we kind of knew that the other tribe was red. And so we were not following the pinkish colors and following these greenish colors, because like green was closer to blue. And so we were just following, and we were like, I don't know if this is leading anywhere. And we definitely like started walking like a little far, and every so often we would like go off the path and like try to find something. Like we like went like 50 yards off path, and I remember like Brandon like stepped on a snake or something like that. Me and Sarah definitely ran through some poison ivy at one point to like see if there was a camp. And then we got to this like crossroads where it was like split 4 ways, and I was like, I think we can probably just like go around the corner and see what's up there. I remember Jess saying like, oh, like maybe we should turn back. Like there was a split when we went like up the hill or down the hill, and Jess was like, maybe we were supposed to go down the hill. And so we were like, okay. And Amy had no idea, the poor thing. We were kind of looking at her like, what do you think we should do? And she was like, I don't know anything. So we were like, all right, like let's head back. Like we don't want to get lost too far if like that's what it was. So we started heading back. We got almost all the way back to like where that split was. And then I think someone called Amy or like walkie-talkied her, and she was like, no, you guys were going the right way. We need to go all the way back the other way. So we went like pretty much, we found out we were just right around the corner from where it opens up. So really, if we'd just gone across the corner, we would have figured it out. But we went all the way up, all the way down, then all the way back up, which I think I said a bunch of times out there. I really think it was like a blessing in disguise, because like one, I think it showed like 0 people had like bad feelings about it. Like everyone was so like chipper and like laughing about it and making jokes, and like it really kind of like bonded us together. And 2, I think the like longer walk and like having to make decisions like that kind of like showed everyone like a little bit about their personality. And so like that's when people were able to start kind of seeing who they might want to work with or who they got along with, because we were kind of actually talking and making decisions instead of just like, oh, we're walking 20 feet forward, like we know exactly where we're going, which is in my head what I imagined the Skitter tribe did. They just like walked forward and didn't talk it through or anything like that, which like we were able to kind of work together. And then by the time we showed up, we were kind of already in this like lovable losers type thing. And and then the other thing was we were missing a tribe member, Karen. We heard them say her name a bunch of times. We knew nothing about her. And And so like we were already like kind of felt like the downtrodden, like we were missing a tribe member, we were lost, like, and we kind of like rallied around that. I thought that was super helpful for us. So I think.
So you guys, before even setting foot on the mats, Lombard kind of had an advantage over Skidder just because of the solidarity.
Yeah, I think we didn't have a numbers advantage. Like we were down one person, which I think is huge in a game like this where like it's such a short game. It's hard to blur tribal lines, especially I think in the way that the swaps ended up happening. I think maybe if we had swapped before the first night and we spent a day together doing challenges and then slept with different people that night, I think maybe then there would have had maybe been a merge scenario or something like that where tribal lines could have blurred a little bit more. But the way that we pretty much went almost 48 hours together as a group, I think it was going to be hard to end up swapping those. So having that bonding moment early on, and then also I think it really helped for the first vote and things like that, having people you've already talked with and bonded with and understood a little bit more. Like I remember on that walk, I think I talked to almost everyone. I don't know if I talked to Tony, but I know I talked to Becca on like the walk through the field. I talked to Sarah because we took a little journey to see this like open field. Like we like took a quick, like I said, a 50-foot walk. I talked to Jazzy and Brandon. We did our own, like, there were definitely a bunch of forks, and I was always trying to be like, let's check out what this fork holds, like, and just walk 10 feet, and you kind of like just talk with the person. And then at one point, I was definitely like walking with Nick a lot throughout the walk. And I definitely wanted to align with Nick, as he like seemed like he was going to be kind of this level-headed alpha male type character that I definitely wanted on my side. And at one point he kind of like nudged me and was like, we're good, right? And I was like, yeah, definitely we're good. So like that was the original like alliance I had already in that first walk. Whereas like I think that's a huge advantage to have all these relationships and talks quickly before even hitting that mat, which I don't know if the other tribe ever got to do.
Yeah. So your first alliance was with Nick.
Yeah.
Who was the first person voted out.
Yeah, it was a really wild turn of events. I mean, obviously it was a little over 24 hours from when I made that alliance with Nick to when we actually had to go vote. So we had that whole first day where it was a majority reward challenges, and then the final one was an immunity challenge, which we ended up winning, which was very important to us to even up that numbers. Yeah, I think in terms of the groups that arose, so my first connection was definitely with Nick, and then I think my second connection was with Jess rather, and Brandon. I think we were the three of us, I think at least, I don't know if they feel the same way, really like bonded in terms of just like having a similar, not like necessarily life experience, but we're both, or all three of us are around like 25 to 27. We're similar age range, definitely like quick to make a joke, like very smiley people. Like I think we were quick to get along. And then in terms of some other people, Sarah was like the life of the camp. Like I don't think she let a quiet minute go by without asking someone like a really thoughtful question or making some like comment that spurned like a some sort of discussion. So she was always kind of leading just natural discussions so that we could get to know each other. And Jazzy was always at the forefront of like whatever talks we were having, and she was always like quick to make a dry comment or a joke, which I really appreciated. So I think those six were maybe more the extroverted folks in the group. And so the way that it originally kind of broke out was those six seemed like a solid group, and they had all talked to each other and talked to everyone else just because I think they were more extroverted.
Okay, wait, which six? So it's you?
So me, Nick, Brandon, Jess, Jazz, and Sarah, I think were the original core six for whatever reason. And so at least in all my talks that first day, had we gone to tribal, I think we were looking to target someone who was quieter and worse at challenges, which obviously we hadn't had any challenges or really like seeing what everyone's skill set were. So really it was the quieter folks who seemed to be on the outside, which would have been Tony and Patrick and Becca. I think as we got to, that's at least how it would have been when we first set foot at camp after that night. So we whatever. We did the 3 reward challenges, which were awesome. And then we did the immunity challenge, which we escaped with a win, which was great. And then we went back to camp, and it was pretty late. I think we probably had like an hour of daylight. And we went back to camp, and I think if we had to go to tribal right then and there, I think we were kind of leaning towards Tony at that point, just because I think he was pretty quiet that day. I think he was feeling like a little on the outs, and he didn't know how to connect with everyone. But I think it really was more of just like an extrovert versus introvert type of thing, where those people definitely came out of their shells as we like spent more time together. So I think that night, this is something the cameras didn't catch. I kind of feel like it's a shame, is the whole building of our camp, the setting up of the camp, and like how we experienced that camp together. So originally we got there's like a little flag that points to this like piece of nothing really, like, which was supposed to be our camp. It was like, there was a bunch of like old tires. There was a bunch of like a pile of like broken ceramic. And we were just like, we were like, I guess this is where we're supposed to go. Like, we weren't sure like whether or not. And so we started like clearing out a section and like getting some rocks ready for like a fire. And like after like 15 minutes, maybe, we had started like dragging some wood over. We were just like, are we sure this is what we want to do? Like, this doesn't seem like a fun place to live. And like we could kind of see around the corner, like maybe this like open area. So I think it was Jazzy or Sarah maybe who made the call of like, why don't we just explore and see if it's like, if it looks good over there. And so we walked over, like a couple of us walked over, and we were like, oh, this is way better. Like there's grass here and flat ground. And then the other key thing about that camp was it was right next to this road, which we weren't sure if it was really Liza's property or not. I think she said at one point, like, be careful like how far down these roads you go, because it's like it's going to start not being our property. But there's this road where they clearly had like cleared out a little bit, but left all the like non-logging branches, which were perfect for firewood. So like there was just like a treasure trove of wood within like 50 feet of our camp there. So like we never really had to struggle for wood or like find wood, like so that was perfect. And then we started setting up, and it kind of like we split into 3 groups. Like we had 2 people or 3 people working on fire. I know Becca said that she could use the flint, or it was at least the only one who had like really practiced. I did practice with a flint before I went out there. I was able to get a spark like twice, but it's not as easy as you think to practice with a flint in the middle of Somerville. I kind of just sat in my driveway and like got it going, but it's super windy, and like there's not enough like nature around to like do it. And I didn't feel comfortable like going to a park and setting a fire going. I didn't really like know what was going to happen there. So I didn't want to like say that I knew how to do it, even though I felt like I understood the mechanics. So Becca was working on that with someone. Tricky, yes. And then there were a bunch of people gathering like wood, and then Nick and I and Jess and Brandon and Sarah at one point, I think, were all like the core people working on the shelter. And so I watched, before I went out there, like a lot of videos about like what shelters to build and like how to build them. And like they weren't all like survivor related. They were just like people who like to live out in the woods, like what shelters they build. And like, so I had a pretty good idea of what we needed. And it was kind of a trade-off. Like if we stuck to the original camp, there were enough trees around where we could build around a tree using the structure of the tree as the like structure of the camp or whatever we want to call it. Whereas when we went to this cleared out area, we did then have to like build our own structures, which I felt like I really knew how to do. So like Nick was trying to help out. I think he was like, at one point he was like, all right, you're just telling me what to do. I'm going to like go to the fire, because it clearly seems like you know what to do. So I was like, okay. I found these 2 like Y pieces, and we got them like set into the ground. And then Sarah had like the good idea to use the rope that we got from the tarps to like tie them to this log that was felled, to like keep them upright. And then we found a cross beam, and then our original plan was to lay a bunch of sticks across to create the roof. And then we realized that the structure was not as strong as we thought. And like by the 12th or something stick that we laid across, it like crumpled right over. So then we went to plan B, which was to lay like 3 beams across it and use those as like the main structures, and then tie the tarps to those beams. But I think again, in those groups, it was a little telling. I think Tony was on the wood, so he was kind of on his own gathering wood. I forget where Jazzy was, but then again, it was me, Jess, Brandon clearing the area for the structure, Sarah, Jess, and I putting the roofing and stuff together. Nick and I working originally on that structure. I think, again, that group was where people kind of like tied together. And then Nick eventually went to help with a fire, and those three got fire. But I think just with those groups, I didn't really get a chance to have like one-on-one talks with Patrick or Tony that first night, because by the time we got the structure even close, it was getting dark. We got the fire going. And then something that the cameras never caught was just like how kumbaya every night was. Like, and I don't know if this was true for the other camps or wherever they were, but like we literally sat around the fire for like a couple hours, just like trading stories. It didn't feel like there was a game going on. Like we all felt very unified. Like we didn't have the like specter of tribal looming over us. So we just were able to like get to know each other. But then sleeping was really where the like strategy first came into play. So the camp was not, or the like structure was not big enough to fit us all. So Tony plopped down like midway through the first night, just asleep while we were still like pretty much setting up. Like I was still getting firewood, and I came back and I pretty much stepped right on him because I didn't know anyone was even asleep yet, and he was just on the ground right next to like where the fire was. So kudos to him for being able to sleep through anything. And then a couple of people started trying to go to sleep in the structure. So I definitely was feeling like tired from the day, and I like wanted to give it a shot to try and sleep because I figured I needed sleep for like challenges the next day. So I went in and I probably tried to sleep for like 20 minutes. I had like a spider on me at one point, and then a tick on my eye at another point. And I just like, the way that the structure was built, it was like slightly slanted down, and we didn't put anything on the ground. And like, I just couldn't get comfortable, especially with like everyone moving and like shuffling in their own sleeping bags and stuff. I just like, I got up and went back to the fire after like 20, 30 minutes maybe. And it was Becca and Brandon and Jazzy were at the fire. Everyone else was asleep either in the camp, or Tony was asleep on the ground. Becca had then gone to sleep, and essentially Jazzy, Brandon, and I stayed up the whole night, like chatting, bonding, but also like I think it was pretty clear after that the three of us all wanted to work together and kind of build that bond. And I think that was huge because that all three of us made Final Four. Like that was a strong group, even though I think we kept each other at arm's length the whole time, because I think at that same moment we all understood that the three of us were all playing hard games, and it was going to be difficult to beat any one of us towards the end. We knew that like at least we like each other and we can make a move if we need to together. But I definitely think it was kind of a funny like standoff in a way of like, okay, we like really like each other and we went through this. We like stayed up all night together and it was awesome. At the same time, the other, like, I think we all viewed each other as huge threats, and like, you're not in my end plan, but definitely in my like end-ish plan. So that was something I don't think the cameras captured at all, was like the three of us staying up literally all night. Like it was wild when the like sun came up and I was like, oh goodness, like I slept maybe like the 15 minutes I tried to sleep with spiders on me. Brandon took a nap by the fire for like another 15 minutes. I don't think Jasmine slept at all that night. Like she was up tending the fire the whole time. And then Becca was the first one up, I think. And so we were able to like definitely bond with her in a way that I hadn't really the first day. And then after that, Becca was one of my like strongest allies. So like she woke up first, sat around the fire, and then the two of us went and grabbed like wood in the morning together and stuff like that. And she was really helpful with the fire and cooking and stuff. So we were really like together a lot in that like I was helping with the cooking, I was helping with the fire, and I think we like created a strong bond that morning. And so by the time it went to go to like our first voting, things from that first day had blurred a little bit, in that like maybe I had made stronger connections with a few other people like Jazzy, who I found an idol with that first day, or Brandon, or Becca.
Wait,
I think I skipped over the idol thing. So we lost the first challenge. I guess if we want to scroll all the way back and kind of run through that first day again, we lost the first challenge, which was the like classic like build a long stick to grab keys and then toss water into the thing. So the red tribe was able to actually get their key. I don't think we were ever actually able to like tie things enough to get keys. So we were feeling down about that. The second challenge was like mini relay race type of thing, and then it ended with like a puzzle, which was like a box. You had to fit like Tetris-y type shapes into a cube and then close the box. And I volunteered for the puzzle. I felt like we needed a win. I felt like I could handle it, and Jasmine also did the puzzle with me. She was having trouble like untying the knots, which was a frequent problem throughout the weekend for everyone. And so I took the box from her and I like ripped it open. And as I ripped it open, there was a piece of paper inside the box that I like almost like mentally was just like, this is trash. And I like threw it onto the ground and then like solved the puzzle really quick, and we won, and we were really excited. And then Jasmine was like, pick up that piece of paper. And so we picked it up. I passed it right to her so that she could have it. And she like quickly after the challenge went off to the bathroom and read it, and then handed it to me. I went off to the bathroom and read it, and it was a clue to an idol that was going to be placed at the next challenge. Essentially it said like, there's going to be this board on the ground, arrow pointing right to where like an idol is going to be hidden under that board. So after whatever happens, we do like our confessionals, we go away, we're like walking back into the challenge area. We're walking essentially past this board to get to our mats. Like I walked right by it, and like kind of like I was holding the like flag and everything like that, and Jasmine like went up and scooped it, and the other tribe saw her, but no one else from our tribe saw her, which was pretty impressive. So then we had that. She like immediately nudged me and was like, we got it. And like once we had a chance to like talk about it, she was like, I have it, but I'm like, more that this is like, I'm considering this our idol, like more than happy to share it. And at first I was like, that's great to say and all, like I don't know if I really believe it. And it's kind of funny that it ended up actually coming. I know that was the idol that ended up being played on me. So like
crazy.
It was crazy how that came around. And that was something I tried to express in my final tribal speech, was like I think that was a testament somewhat to my social game, in that like there was no reason for her to play that on me or to like waste that on me, knowing how strong of a threat she was. To like, she should keep that, if anything.
And you too.
Yeah, and me too. Yeah, want to keep me around. So I was trying to like express that like her playing that on me was a big thing, but we'll get to final tribal, I think. So we won that. We made our cool trade with Liza, which was awesome. That was another one of my ideas that I didn't get to really like take credit for. Was as soon as we won, I was like, we should trade some of this for a flint. So we didn't win a flint on that first. The other tribe won a flint as a reward and a fire making kit for that first thing, and I was like, the one thing we need tonight is a fire for sure.
To make your pancakes.
Yeah, to make our pancakes, but more to just like, you like, even if you slept with it, like we could have slept without a fire. It wasn't like that cold that night, especially because we had our sleeping bags. But just to have that time of like sitting around the fire, bonding, and then for me especially, like it's just a morale thing of like having fire.
And you didn't even take a negotiating class at Stanford.
No, or Yale or whatever. Yeah. I should have brought that up a little bit more, but I guess not. I don't know. I should have asked Liza for a jacket, maybe. But yes, we made the trade and we made out like bandits. I think we only gave up one thing of pancake rice. We did give up the spatula, which ended up kind of betraying us a little bit. But I was happy that we got the flint out of it. So we made that trade. Then I think we won the third challenge, which was for tarps, which was another huge thing. It was supposed to rain that night, at least like we all looked at the forecast. It was supposed to rain Thursday night and then drizzle Sunday morning. And like it ended up being a little wet like in the AM on Friday, so it could be considered rain, but we ended up not needing it. But like if it had rained and we lost those tarps, that would have been another morale killer. Like I feel like winning those tarps, having them, the like security to like sleep under them was huge again for our morale going into the next day. And then the fourth challenge was the immunity challenge, which we really needed to win. I can't even remember what the challenge was. I think it was the one where they did the like dancing through the ropes
and then running back and
then like having to run out to grab things, or maybe that was the second challenge.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh no, it was the combination lock one. So that it was,
that's right,
the slingshot, the puzzle, the rocks, and they all led to this combination lock. And it was kind of there was a few production hurdles there. I think they dealt with them pretty well. It ended up, I felt it being pretty fair in the end. One was our puzzle didn't give us the right number. They solved the puzzle and it was the wrong number for whatever reason. And then the other one, I think math on their like combo sheet had like a plus instead of a minus or something like that,
no.
or some sort of typo that prevented them from doing the math. So whatever it was, we all were able to get to the point where we could do the math, but we had one thing wrong to do the math and they had one thing wrong to do the math. So once they fixed them both, in my opinion, it was a fair challenge. Maybe I'm biased because I ended up being able to the one to be able to do the math and figure out the code pretty quickly. But that was huge to win that. So yeah, then we went into the second day. We didn't know like when tribal happened or like what was going on. Now I'm blanking on who the first person to go home was from their tribe.
That was Sam, a woman with dark hair.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Yeah. I wasn't super surprised at that vote off. But it was interesting. We all kind of had our own like theories about like who was running the tribe. Like some of us thought it was Justin. Some of us thought it was Toby. Some of us thought it was Katie. I think in the end we were all sort of right.
Yeah. I think Katie and Justin is the correct answer.
Interesting. So yeah, I guess Katie and Justin sounds right. I did think Toby had more power than maybe it ended up actually seeming. It seemed like he was a social mover in there, but it was hard to tell. And then, so I think the Wheelaw ended up losing the first challenge of that day, and it came to vote off time. And so earlier that morning, I had tried to connect with everyone. So I had my talk with Tony, which is where we kind of solidified our final two.
So that morning before
we went to the challenge area,
you made your final two with Tony.
Yeah, I made a final two with Tony. I like went up to him. I was like, hey, like we were the first ones here. It'd be really cool to like be the last ones here. Like we didn't really get a chance to talk yesterday, but I kind of mentioned like he was saying like, yeah, he felt like a little nervous around everyone, and I was like, no, I think we all appreciated you like at least reaching out as much as you could yesterday, and now, as you're getting more comfortable with it, like opening up and stuff. And I was like, listen, like I'm not gonna lie to you. You seem like a really loyal guy. Like I hope you're not gonna lie to me. So that was kind of when we did a final two deal. Then we all kind of agreed that the vote should be either Patrick or Tony. And so we were kind of thinking it could be Tony. And I was, at that point, I was like, I'm down to make final two just with anyone and then cut them off. So it wasn't like a huge deal. And then I also tried to make a connection with Patrick. I knew Becca and Patrick were really close. They did the fire together. They had kind of just been like chatting together. I think they were just pretty close, and I had made that connection with Becca in the morning. So I took Patrick aside. I was like, oh, do you want to like grab wood or whatever? It was like an easy thing to like kind of seem like you're not just talking. And I was like, hey, like we didn't really get to chat yesterday, but like I had a talk with Becca and I really want to work with her. She said she's really close with you. I know we didn't get a chance to talk, but you seem like a really cool guy. Like definitely down to work together today. Like whatever happens, like just keep me in the loop. And then, so we had that talk. I thought we were like really solid. I was being super earnest with him. Like I definitely did want to like work with him. And then the next thing I hear is that he's throwing out my name, like saying like, oh, like Cameron's very schemy. Like I don't like trust him, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, at that point I was like, all right, like this is not great.
How did you hear that?
Through Nick. And so still not sure if it's true. I think it's true because Tony did say that Patrick told him that. And I don't think Tony has any reason to have lied to me about that. But I heard it through Nick. And then Nick was also starting to make moves against Jazzy for whatever reason. And I was like, well, I don't want her to go this early. Like, one, I like playing with her. I like her. I had that whole night where we bonded. And two, she's got my idol in her pocket. Like, I would hope to keep that in the game. Like, it's better to know where they are, even if she might not use it for or with me. Like, I would want to know where it is. And Nick was also super obvious about searching for idols all night. Like he was walking around like on his own and in the morning, and like it was very clear. And he just seemed to be this like center point of chaos for that first vote. So we had this like very good vibe going on until that first vote, and really until that like morning when Nick started, one, idol searching, two, starting to like throw out Jazzy's name, and three, then telling everyone a slightly different story. And so while I wanted to keep him around just as like a challenge threat, I was more than willing to like cut him loose because I thought he was playing in a way that didn't vibe with how I wanted to play. In that like I wanted to have social control over the tribe and be able to maneuver with different groups of people. That's why I was connecting with Becky and Patrick. That's why I was connecting with Tony. That's why I was connecting with Jazzy and Brandon. My whole goal was to like make a connection with every single person out there, and whatever waves come at you, you can kind of flow with whatever group comes. Like a very voting blocky type of strategy. And Nick was playing in a way that was going to disrupt that, in that he was putting in an unnecessary amount of chaos and like fear into people that I didn't want there. I wanted everyone to feel comfortable. That's like the exact opposite of what I wanted. I wanted everyone to think I was with them, that they had enough people, that they were in a tight group, and maybe they all couldn't obviously be in that tight group or whatever the real group was, but I wanted everyone to feel comfortable, because when people are comfortable, they're not doing a lot of things that are like going against you or lying or things like that. Whereas when they're afraid, they're going to do something about it. So I didn't really like the way that Nick was playing. And so I like, as he started talking, I mean, we were still pretty solid with Tony. And then after a point, we were just like, listen, like he told me that Patrick was throwing out my name. So then like the vote switched to Patrick. And I was, after a certain point, I was like, no, like we could vote out Patrick. And then what's the like end game here? We're going to let Nick kind of rule by fear every vote. So we were like, we got to get him out. I think it was me, Brandon, Jazzy, Sarah. Sarah came to us. He like went up to Sarah at some point. It was like something about like I almost giving her like an ultimatum. Like, if you're with me, I'll tell you the vote. But if you're not with, I don't know. So I didn't understand the conversation, but she seemed very upset about it. So she was on board. We didn't feel comfortable telling Jess, because Jess and Nick did have like a really tight bond. And we still, like, Nick did do a lot of idol searching. We weren't sure if there were idols at camp. I think in the end there weren't any idols at camp, especially because we didn't really have a set camp. So I guess that makes sense. But he did do a lot of searching, so we weren't sure. We didn't want to tip him off. We didn't tell Patrick because he was the other person getting votes. And so it ended up being 2 votes Patrick, which were, or maybe someone ended up did telling Patrick. I'm not sure who ended up doing that. But I think the core 4 that made the decision were me, Sarah, Brandon, Jazzy. And then we brought in people that we thought could vote with us. Like Becca voted with us. I think Patrick ended up voting with us because those were the 2 opposite votes. And so then come the second vote, or we vote out Nick. It's kind of sad, to be honest. And like now we're really down 2 people and a really strong challenge competitor. So we were kind of like back against the wall a little bit. But my first goal then was to connect with Jess. I like immediately after the vote, I like went to Jess and was like, listen, I'm really sorry. Like he was just making everything crazy. Like we want to have a comfortable group, and I wanted to bring Jess back in. And I think we had a really good conversation, to the point where she went to the bathroom, came back, talked to me, told me immediately that she found an idol in the bathroom. So like, wow. I think that was like huge. Again, like that was my whole game, was I wanted people to feel comfortable with me. I wanted people to like trust me. Jasmine didn't need to tell me that she pulled the idol out. I mean, I knew that she did, but like she could have tried to hide it and like kept it to herself. Jess, no need to tell me. I just betrayed her at the other vote. She came up to tell me about the idol. And I think that also like I really made an earnest try to like bring her back into the group, make sure that she was in the fold. And then in the next vote, that's why I really made sure it was Patrick. 1, because he was targeting me. 2, because I wanted Jess to feel like she was in the major group that was making a decision. So like I was like, Jess, like we don't want to vote you out next. Like she thought she was next. And I like needed to make sure she was comfortable with us going forward, because I did want to work with her. I did want to work with Brandon. I still wanted to work with that original group. Just sans Nick now. Then I think we lost 2 challenges in a row. The next vote was relatively simple. It was Tricky, who was sent home. It was tough. He definitely wanted to be there. I think other people had a harder emotional time voting him out than me, because he wasn't throwing out their names, but he was directly throwing out my name. So I didn't have as much of like there was not as much love lost in that direct moment, because I was like I made a sincere offer and you kind of rebuffed it and started trying to work against me. So I was like, clearly I can't work with you. My game, as I've said, is all about being able to work with every piece on the board, every person that's out there, having a sincere connection. If you're not going to be willing to do that, then there's no point in having you in this game long term. So
you can't say he was wrong then.
No, he definitely wasn't wrong. Just, I guess kudos to him for seeing through my bullshit kind of. Whereas maybe other people rightly or wrongly, were willing to make that connection with me and willing to go for the ride with me. So we voted out Patrick. So now we're down 7-9, and this was a huge challenge. We won another challenge to make it 7-8. If we had gone down like 6-9 or something like that to the other tribe, it would have been murderer's row of red people down the end. So we're glad that we won that one to make it 7-8. I forget what the challenge was, but at this point we had just a lot of people step up in challenges. I mean, Sarah was a challenge beast. Brandon showed himself to be a pretty good challenge beast as well. I'm trying to think. I mean, I obviously tried to pick up as much slack as I could from like a stronger male perspective, having voted out Nick. I think there was one challenge where we had to lug a bunch of logs like across, and like I offered to be the lead horse on that one, and that was the one moment I regretted voting out Nick. I got to the end and my legs were dead, and we gave up, I mean, only about like 20 seconds to the other tribe, who had like Justin and Toby and like Forrest dragging their logs or something like that. And I was like, Forrest is ripped, Justin was a Marine, Toby's got like the legs of a gazelle. Yeah. Like, it was not a fair matchup. I think it was me, Jess, and Tony, I think, were dragging it, and like we admirable effort, I would say. But like, so anyways, we're all like putting in our hardest effort to like go down another number would have killed us. And then after that, so they voted, it's 8-7, and we do this brownies challenge. This was a genius move. Well, or genius or not genius move, I don't know. It was this challenge where essentially you were playing ultimate frisbee with like a Nerf ball. Wasn't supposed to be a contact sport, but I think tensions had started boiling up. It was a hot afternoon. We had been out there competing for like 3 or 4 challenges. And it got like pretty physical. Definitely some trash talking going on both ways. I'm not going to say I wasn't in the wrong or the right on either side of it. I was out there. I get pretty competitive, especially in like a sports atmosphere like that. I think some of the challenges where it's like an obstacle course, it's hard to be like, have that like competitive feel. And so I think some of the people that were more competitive, like finally when it was a more sports, like mano-a-mano type of competition, it definitely came out. They ended up winning the brownies, which like, I don't know. We offered to, after like 10 minutes of like tearing up our bodies doing that, like running back and forth, we offered Eliza like, let's split it or whatever. And then like she wouldn't let us do that. And it was killer to like, after that challenge was the lowest I felt physically. So we like lost the brownies. I had just run around in the heat for a while. I hadn't slept the night before. We actually didn't eat the night before. We ate some rice and some pancakes the morning of, but the pancakes sat horribly with me. The pancakes I hated. I ate a couple bites. It did not sit well because it was just this like gooey. We had to make like scrambled egg pancakes essentially because we didn't have any oil. We didn't have a spatula, so we just poured all the batter in and like moved it around with a stick until it was like somewhat edible.
With a stick.
Oh, and it sat like a rock in my stomach. I felt so sick after eating it. The rice was okay, but we stupidly, I guess we didn't really like ask enough questions. We didn't know that the rice that we got was 1 day portions and we would be refilled each day. So we portioned our rice as if we needed it to last 4 days. So we had a little over a quarter of that rice when we could have had a whole thing of rice. So we had like 1/3 the food that we should have had that morning. And after running around like that, and like I did the log challenge, I did that challenge, and I was really trying to like keep it. I was like, I don't think I had a huge headache. I was like dehydrated. I was hot. I was getting sunburned, and I sat down, and at that point I was like so physically spent. I was like, we're about to be down in numbers again. Like if we don't win this next challenge, it's like it's over if we go down 9-6 or whatever it is. Like there's the swap's coming and we're just gonna get picked off. And so I was like, that was the most down I felt pretty much all weekend until the last day, was that moment after the brownies challenge before the next challenge. I just like couldn't emotionally get up for whatever the next thing was. And so I like sat away from the tribe for a few minutes, and I don't know how they took it, but I was just like, ugh, like I can't do this. I somehow rallied. I was like, all right, like I got some water in me, and I was like, one thing we need to do is just win this next challenge. I can't for the life of me remember what it is. I must have blacked it out, but we won it somehow. And they voted Michael out.
Right, that's right.
So Jasmine quit, which screwed up the numbers because it was going to be a three tribes of 5 swap. at
You said you had
8-7.
anticipated a swap.
Yes.
You were expecting that?
I think we were expecting a swap either at... We thought maybe the first night we would swap at 18, have two vote offs, swap at 18 before the first night. When we didn't swap at when we didn't get to 18 by the end of the first night, we kind of knew that we were going to stick with these tribes a little bit longer. And so I think our next options were, we kind of always knew that there was going to be a third tribe at some point. So I think everyone was thinking either, or I had the hunch that there was going to be a third tribe rather, a 3-way swap at 15, so 3 tribes of 5, or a 2-way swap at 14 at the end of the day. We assumed that we weren't going back to our original camps that night, or like new camps. And so, sorry, I'm misremembering this, but yeah, so the other Jasmine did quit, which made the number 7-7, which was huge. Going into this assumed 3-way swap, I was running the numbers through my head. I was like, well, if we have 7, we're guaranteed to at least have 3 on one tribe. Like, the worst you can do is 3-2-2. So, like, hopefully it's a 1 in 3 chance or whatever. I was trying to war dog this math up in my head. Like, what are the odds that I am at least safe? And then we did this wood chip draw. So we drew for captains. So the 3 people would become captains of the 3 new tribes. Sarah ended up becoming a captain. I think it was Katie was the other captain. And then I was a captain of the new Skitter tribe. So I got a nice red buff, and got to draft my own tribe. And so logically here, I wish we were able to like chat it out. And we had really kind of chatted it out as a group that like, if there was a swap, if we're captains, make sure you have a majority on your tribe, yada, yada, yada. Sarah gets the first pick in this draft, and the first pick, I believe she picks Toby, which like she had been talking to Toby in between challenges and stuff like that. So I think they were bonding a little bit. I think at one point, Sarah's like personality of like wanting to get to know people, which was really helpful in a tribal atmosphere of like asking people questions and like keeping conversation going, really screwed her over in this moment, because I think she was for a second thinking like, I want to meet some of these people like Toby, and then she picked Forrest later, like Forrest, who is like an enigmatic character and like really interesting to get to know, over the numbers of I need to make sure there are 3 people on my tribe. Where it really got hairy was, so they picked the Katie's tribe, which was going to end up only having 4 people, pick Jess first. Jess already told me she had an idol, so I wasn't worried about taking all of our tribe members off the board, hoping that they only need to go to, like, we're probably going to merge at 12 or something. Hopefully they only need to go to a tribal council once, and she can use her idol. They'll be okay. So I was purposely not even worried about her on that side. Like, I knew that I could grab all the blue people off the board, knowing that she was fine. And if she was fine, what we could do is 1 Jess on that tribe, 3 blues on my tribe, 3 blues on Sarah's tribe. And it came close. I came close to being able to do that. I drafted Brandon, I drafted Becca, and I was purposely leaving Jazzy on the board for Sarah to grab. Sarah grabbed Tony, and she just kept not doing it. And I was like, at a certain point, I got a little worried of like, oh, like maybe she's going to flip or something like that. And I was talking with Brandon, and I was like, do we pull Jazzy, give us a solid 4 advantage on our tribe, or do we pick one of the Skitter tribe members left and let Jazzy go to the other side? And I was just worried. I was like, I know Jazzy's really got a good connection with Sarah. Like, are they going to like, is this going to screw us up coming down into the numbers? And so I kind of like quickly ran through the numbers in my head. Like, if we stay the 4 strong that I grab, Jess survives, that's 5. If one of Tony or Sarah survives, that's 6. That's a solid group. Hopefully we can do that moving forward, rather than, hey, let Jazzy go to the other tribe. Maybe Sarah has some other plan. She already is tight with Jazzy. Maybe they're going to flip on us when it comes time to come together. Whereas if we're a solid 4 and each of them is kind of the lone man standing from the other 2 tribes, they want to come back to us. And so I grabbed Jazzy, which kind of screwed Sarah over in terms of not being able to give her the majority. But again, I am going to completely blame her for that, for grabbing Toby and Forrest so early in the
At that
draft.
point, did you know Sarah and Jasmine knew each other?
I didn't know until Sarah got voted out. Jasmine did not tell us. She might have told Brandon, but he seemed to not know either until... So I found out the 3rd day after Sarah got voted out. So I didn't know that at all. And I think had I known that, I would have been more likely to even select Jazzy, because them knowing each other plus being with some of the other people that I thought they could try to make some moves. I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I grabbed my 4, and then we were left with 2 choices. It was Emily or Becky. Patrick had vouched for Becky from a prior challenge. It was the slingshot challenge where like we all had butterfly nets trying to capture the things. Every challenge we were trying to get like intel on the other thing. So after every challenge we would come back and be like, oh, I like had a quick conversation with this person, or oh, like I got a bad vibe from this person. And Patrick seemed like Becky was the nicest human being out there. Like he was like, oh yeah, we were doing the butterfly together. Like she seems so nice. Like we were chatting, and like she might be someone that like, because we were all kind of looking for someone maybe we could pull if we were down numbers or something like that. So that's what he said. So when I saw the 2 of them there, I was like, oh, I know something about Becky. I know nothing about Emily. So I picked Becky. I like felt bad about it as soon as I did it, because I know that put her at like the 1 instead of the 1 versus the 4. And in the back of my head, I was like, well, we could throw a challenge. We could vote her off. At the same time, assuming we win all these challenges, at least it's someone that maybe I could get to know and work with. Assuming we come in at the wrong numbers, this is someone that now I can talk to, that someone has vouched for. So that was the like impetus for picking them. And then we had one final challenge. It was this was a good challenge. So it was one final challenge. It was the winner got a spaghetti and meatball dinner and immunity. The second winner got nothing, just immunity, and the third person had to go to tribal. So it was a like number grid. I guess it's called like magic math or something like that. Magic number, where you have the numbers 1 through 16, and you have to put them in a 4x4 grid where every column and row add up to the same number. And this is where the sleep deprivation screwed us over. I did the math in my head so many times of adding up like 1 through 16, dividing by 4 or whatever, like the correct math, to figure out what the columns and rows needed to add up to. And I got it wrong so many times. I was like, they need to add up to 37. No, they need to add up to 42. Sorry, I did it wrong. 42. I think it was 41 was the actual thing.
It was 34.
It was 34? Oh, okay. Yeah. And so like I spit out like so many numbers, and we were trying to do it. And Brandon had this idea of like starting from the like diagonal center out, which was really smart. And like, but for whatever reason, we couldn't figure it out. It was me. It was everyone there, I think. And it was a little weird. I felt like I was a little unsettled because I didn't think Becky was trying. And so I was worried at one point, like, does she have an idol? Like, it didn't seem like she was trying to win this challenge. And I was going in thinking like, well, it's okay if we lose this one. Like, I'm not going to try too hard. We saw Sarah's tribe zoomed through it. I guess Toby like knew how to do it immediately. And so they like figured it out like within 13 seconds. I think both of the other 2 tribes were there for minutes, to the point where they were questioning whether or not to give us a number to figure it out. Then we figured it out, and we ran to the puzzle section.
And you didn't
stupidly
think about...
we did not. This is again where the sleep deprivation really keyed in. Not only could I not do math, I didn't think of the classic Survivor thing of, hey, kick your puzzle over after you're done so they can't see your puzzle. We left it wide open for them, so they just went and like grabbed the numbers and set up their own. And so they were right behind us on the flag section. We just had maybe a minute and a half advantage or whatever on the flag section, and we were able to close it out. I think going in, it's like a nice idea to like throw a challenge when you're sitting there in the adrenaline, and especially the way Becky interacted with those numbers. I was like, she's got something in her pocket. Like, I do not want to go to a tribal council. So then like after that, I hustled to the end.
Wow.
Good on her, because I know she didn't have it at that point. But she definitely gave me like a little bit of a fright in that challenge. And I think Brandon said the same thing after. Like, that's weird that she was not like trying to help. Maybe she just didn't want to like ruffle feathers or anything like that, or I don't know what it was, but it definitely, whatever it was, paid off for her, because we were scared to lose a challenge. So we were immune. Jess's tribe was going to tribal. I knew all night that Jess was going to be okay, so I was happy about that. I knew she had the idol. I knew she was going to be fine. So I was more... The whole night I was just talking with Jazzy of like, do you think she's going to vote out Justin or Katie? And so that was the only like question that night. So it was the second night in a row where like kumbaya for Cameron, Brandon, Jasmine, and Becca. The 4 of us were like sitting pretty. Becky was a gracious host. We went back to the Skitter tribe, and like, I guess Justin had built some pretty cool structure of their own. They used all the pine needles as bedding and as roofing, which like, I forgot who on our tribe told us not to do because of the ticks, but at that point, like we had a million ticks on us already, so we weren't scared of it, and it was actually really nice to have like the bedding. I slept actually that night for like a good 6 hours, I think. But we again had a really nice kumbaya. We got to know Becky. I tried to pull Becky aside and kind of explain like, hey, like, I don't want to lose a challenge as this group. Like if we go into another swap or a merge or whatever, like I'm hoping to keep you around and like we can work together moving forward. So I kind of had a chance to explain that to her. I really solidified bonds with Becca at this point. So that was someone who like knew fresh bonds as of earlier that morning, spending a whole day together. Picking her as a captain, I think, was really a strong move to build trust in her. I knew Jess was going to be okay. I had made a final two with Tony. I didn't think that he was going to flip on that if we ever got together again. I still think I was his strongest ally. And then being able to keep my eye on Brandon and Jazzy was also kind of a huge benefit there. So that night, while again there really wasn't a lot of game being played, it was really just counting. We just spent the whole night counting numbers. So we were like, all right, if Jess idles one of them out, we're up 7-6. It's 13. We either merge at 12 or 11. So we somehow need to keep so we're up 7-6 at 13. We need to at least have 6 at 11. We need to at least have 6 at 12. Ideally 7 at 12. What can we do? Sarah and Tony are down in numbers. We're the only tribe up in numbers. Like the kind of question came, do we throw a challenge? Do we not throw a challenge? Ultimately, again, I think it's one part of we couldn't have been sure whether or not Becky had an idol. I was definitely like a little worried about that. Two, we had a really good night together, and I think she at least gave us the impression that she would buy into working with us. And so we didn't want to go to a tribal council. And so the next day came, and like, again, the opportunity to throw a challenge was there. We didn't do it. And it was the purple tribe again that lost the first challenge. No, I don't think that's right.
Yes.
Is it right? I think it was Sarah was the next one to go.
I think that it was only one tribe won, and two tribes went to Canada.
Oh, okay.
And
so that was
Sarah
the other thing.
was out
right
before.
I gotcha. Yep, you're right, because they hid the idol for both tribals. So yeah, that was another reason to not throw the challenge, was only one tribe is going to get immunity. So no matter what happened here, like, two people are going home. That really screws up the way that the mental math works. I know, like, looking at it in retrospect, knowing Becky doesn't have an idol, it seems smart to say, hey, let's throw this challenge. At least one red person is going to go home during this 2 vote off. Then you still have the numbers advantage at 11. You're still up 6-5. That seems great, except when you're out there and you're like, one person with an idol is enough to like screw you over. And who knows? I mean, maybe she could have pulled a Jess and found the idol in tribal council if she didn't already have one. So losing was not. I think as soon as we heard that it was 2 vote offs, we weren't even considering losing that challenge or throwing that challenge anymore. So we went in. I have no idea what this challenge was, but we won it, so we must have done good at it. I cannot, for the life of me, remember what it was.
I know. It was you were blindfolded and had to get the puzzle.
Challenge. Yep.
Yeah, Jasmine was so good at that.
Yeah, that was a huge strength of ours. Yeah, Jasmine killed the calling puzzle. I sat out with Becca, which was a strategic choice. One, I wasn't sure if we were going to merge immediately, so I wanted to make sure I could play the next challenge. 2, that meant 2 other people were going to sit out from the other tribe, and so I was finally able to, like, it was a long challenge with them calling, so I was able to talk with Toby and Tony a lot to figure out kind of like where their heads were at. I reconnected with Tony a little bit to be like, hey, like, just do what you need to do to survive this next vote. Like, I think we're going to merge soon. Like, we're going to be back together. With Toby, I was really trying to figure out, hey, like, what's your deal? Like, who are you? Like, what's going on? I kind of got to know him a little bit better. His family had started showing up, so it really like humanized him as a person. I like got to know him a little bit, and like, just in case for whatever reason I needed to work with him, I built that bond, which was like kind of a core aspect of what I was trying to do out there. Then we won, and it sent the first vote there, and I was just really hoping Sarah was able to pull Toby in, and I was hoping they would vote out Forrest because he's kind of a wild card, and maybe they didn't want to work with him. But it seems like they stuck Red strong, even to the point where Tony knew it was a lost cause and voted with them. So Sarah went home, and then so at that point, Sarah went home. It is now 6 in numbers at 12 with one vote to go, where Jess is a sitting duck, and we're like peeking over the hedges trying to see what's going on in this tribal council. We see John get up in the middle of tribal council. We see Jess get up in the middle of tribal council, and then we see Justin get up in the middle of tribal council, and we're like, were 3 idols played? Like, what happened? We were so confused about like what even went down there. But whatever happened, John ended up going home. Jess, we know afterwards, found the idol tied to the back of tribal council's fence, played it as like she found it as she was coming back from voting. So she voted not even knowing that she voted thinking she was going home, which is crazy. But that idol play, I mean, finding that idol saved the game for the entire blue tribe. I mean, if she lost that, and I was trying to explain that at the end too, to like give her credit for like, she is the impetus, finding those 2 idols she had to save Lombard's entire existence. We would have gone into the end game down a number, probably down 2 numbers if she doesn't play both of those idols. But instead we came to the merge at 6-5. The only things I was worried about were making sure Jess was backing with us. Jess and Justin kind of had that Marine connection. They were both Marines. I wasn't sure how bonded they were, and then I was a little confused at her idling out first Katie and then John and not choosing to take a swing at Justin. So I was a little worried that she knew she was on the outs from the Nick vote, or like felt she was on the outs from the Nick vote and flipping over. So I again immediately made that connection to bring her back in. Then we went to, it was a merge. We had the feast. It was great. That was the best cold hot dogs I ever had. I put so much the like ketchup on it. And then at the merge, Jazzy got the basket, looked through it a little bit for an idol. I like kind of stood guard for her. Then she passed it to Jess to start handing things out. I noticed Jess put one aside for herself. So I knew immediately afterwards to go up to her and say like, hey, did you find something? She told me immediately. Again, literally in the merge feast, she told me.
Wow.
Which like I felt like it was working to a T, this whole like building these bonds and whatnot, in that's now the 3rd idol that my teammates have found and told me within 3 minutes maybe of finding it, and like not at all tried to hide it from me, which was huge. So knowing that information, knowing she had that merge idol, knowing that, first of all, good on her for finding it again, because now a red person didn't find it, so that they had 2 idols to throw at us, because we knew that they had the one from the original tribal split. And then now knowing that Jess had it, I could kind of maneuver through the game with that knowledge. So we went into the merge up 6-5. To me, it didn't make any sense to try and do any type of split until we were down to 9, 8, or 7. There were a bunch of guys that I thought were challenge threats to me. And also they were good talkers. Justin and Toby were probably 2 of the best talkers out there in terms of being vocal about moving opinions and kind of just pointing targets and building things up. I knew I didn't want them in the game very long. They were also challenge threats, maybe not in terms of the individual games where they're kind of maybe a little bit more based on balance and things like that, but at least they were physically imposing enough to be considered challenge threats down the stretch. So to me, it was 3 easy vote-offs. We're going to get down to 8 before we even make a move. That said, we're going into that vote thinking, oh, they have an idol. They know it's 3 easy vote-offs. Why not give them kind of the runaround here, vote for someone they're not expecting? The 2 that they're not expecting are Becky and Emily. I want Becky in the game. I throw out Emily's name as like the curveball here. We're all going into the vote thinking we're going to vote for Toby. We know Justin has the idol in his possession right now because he had it on the purple tribe. In terms of idol psychology, it's very hard to give that away to someone, especially in kind of this like Russian roulette style vote where we're just going to take a shot at one of them. They need to guess correctly.
What made you think Justin had the idol at the purple tribe?
Jess said that he had the idol with him at the Purple Tribe, or at least he
said that he did.
He said to Jess that he did. So we were under the
he
impression
didn't have it.
He did not have
No.
it. Interesting. So who had it?
Toby had it
Toby had it
the whole time.
Do you know when he gave it to Justin?
So he gave it to Justin at the merge.
At the merge, prior to losing the challenge? Mm-hmm. Because Justin was the one that was always holding it, or?
No, they all took turns.
Interesting. That is interesting. Yeah. I mean, going into the vote, I was saying Justin has it. I don't anticipate him giving it away, but now it sounds like Toby did give it away. So I think it kind of refutes that whole point a little bit. Anyway, so I mean, it's still the logic of going after one of the two girls was sound in that it would have been very surprising had they placed the idol on her, knowing that they only had one chance to get it right.
Why wouldn't you vote out Forrest, though, there?
So,
he seems like the more obvious one, because no one's going to give him an idol.
So it was, I think the Sarah vote is what threw us off from voting out Forrest there. So in the Sarah vote, Toby, Forrest, Emily all held Reg strong. Whereas if they hated him, if for whatever reason there was like something going on there, I think it maybe would have been clear. We tried to ask Tony about like how they felt about him and stuff, like because Tony was the only one who got to see that camp. We didn't get enough information. Like we kind of were annoyed at Forrest, but it wasn't really clear how much they didn't like Forrest or how tight he was in their like grouping. So that's why we spared him there. And we thought the curveball of going for the girl, knowing that the three guys, we were gonna the kind of the whole point was that we were gonna go to tribal and say we need to eliminate the challenge threat. There's three strong guys over there. There's this guy walking around with a shirt off, looking like a I don't know, a buff farmer. There's the guy with the long legs. There's the Marine. We need to get them all out. That was gonna be our play at tribal. So if we were gonna do that and then vote out Forrest, like we were painting the target on the three of them together. It would have been hard to say we're only painting the target on Toby and Justin. So that was kind of the plan there. I do want to take credit for that move. I think the video will prove it. I think it was maybe it was a similarly timed thing. I said that while Brandon was away talking with Becky and Emily about a potential final 3 deal with them. Mm-hmm. He came back and I said, why not Emily? And he said, ooh, like they just offered me a final 3. That's genius. They're going to think it's all set. So I think it was kind of a concurrent thing. But I was the person who brought it up to the group. So I do want to claim that because that was a huge thing of getting rid of their idol and then we could just mow them down 1 through 3. I did win that challenge. I couldn't help myself. I hated doing that. But it was that cool challenge from Survivor where they have to like balance the one ball on the plate, then add a second ball, then add a third ball. And I just like, it's one of those things you see it on TV and you're like, I think I could do that. Or like, I want to try it out. That's a fun game. And then when it comes time to do it, you're just like, I just wanted to give it my all, even knowing that like winning that necklace wasn't probably the best thing to do to put a target on my neck that early. That said, Justin and Toby really helped me out by painting a huge target on Jasmine of just essentially going to tribal council and saying, she's the biggest threat, she's running the game, yada, yada, yada. And I was sitting there like, sure, why not let everyone think that? I don't think anyone from Blue really thinks she was running the game. She played a really strong game. She knew she was a threat. She kind of was open about that, which let her kind of openly strategize and things like that. Whereas I think some of the people who were trying not to seem like threats, like myself or Brandon, were playing a more reserved strategic game. I think Jess was probably doing a similar thing. And so I mean, from the Red Tribe's perspective, yes, it looks like Jasmine was making decisions and running the show. I don't necessarily think in actuality it was that way, but I was more than happy, especially at that first vote where I was kind of kicking myself for winning the thing and becoming this like person who has this giant gold beetle on their neck. It was very helpful to have them throw a target at Jasmine, and that was something I could use later down the road. So then the rest of the night went pretty simply. So the next vote, we voted out Forrest at the second vote off. Again, we voted Forrest just because had Justin managed to find an idol within that time frame, we thought he was more likely to like play it on himself or whatever.
So the whole time you all thought Justin was the one who found it, so he was the one you were worried about finding another one?
The information from Jess that came in was that he had it physically in his hand. I think he probably bluffed that he had it. But we were just more thinking of how Forrest was approaching the game versus how Justin was approaching the game. Justin was cool, calm, collected, very serious, seemed like a very cerebral person while also being physical. Forrest was there for the experience. I really didn't think Forrest was going out searching for idols. I'd be very surprised if he knew what an idol was, to be honest, before they were played. So voting on Forrest seemed like a no-brainer there, just in case Justin managed to find one super quickly. Then the third vote out came. This is like the balancing challenge. The choice to go Toby over Justin here was, we thought the night was going to end, or no, this wasn't the balancing challenge, but it was another challenge. We thought the night was going to end there. We were going to go back to camp with 8 people. Toby's family had showed up 2 days in a row. It was his birthday.
Yeah.
I said, we need to vote Toby out now so he can go home with his family. Like that was something I said to the tribe. I think we need to send him home. He needs to spend tonight with his family. It would be torture to have him spend an extra night here just knowing he's the next person to go. It's just not fair. So that's why we chose him over Justin at that point. We thought through 2 tribals, there wasn't going to be anything funky happening, so we weren't super worried about it. At this vote, I caught Becky going in, and I kind of like nudged her and said, we're voting Toby, vote Toby, at Tribal Council, because this is right about the time when I wanted to bring Becky back into my fold to see at 7, at 8, is there something we can do together as a group? I'm going to need people who want to vote with me to unearth Jess's idol, to unearth Jazz's idol. So this is when I brought her back into the fold. I think she correctly guessed we were voting Forrest the vote before, so there were there was already signs that she voted with us, and that also helped me kind of cover it, because people were confused after the vote, like, oh, there weren't enough votes for us or whatever, and I was like, oh, well, I think Becky probably like guessed it because she guessed Forrest right or whatever, like she knew it was one of the other 2. I think she's just trying to save herself, yada yada yada. So I also tried to cover it up after the fact, that I gave away that vote. And then they tricked us. There was one more vote, which kind of worked out perfectly, because then we were able to vote off Justin. And not that I don't love Justin, but we were able to go back to the camp with like this perfect 7. It was 2 people that I liked from our original tribe, Tony and Jess, as well as the 5 people we just had a beautiful night with and spent the other day with the night before in the new Skitter tribe of Becca, Becky, Brandon, Jazzy, and myself. And so it was like my 7 favorite people for one final night. We can kind of turn the game off. We know we're going to war tomorrow, but we can kind of like experience this like last night together and really like revel in the fact that we made the final day. Whereas I think if Justin were there, would have been a little bit tenser of an environment. Becky was definitely good at playing the downtrodden card and just kind of here to have fun card. So it definitely, even though I know retrospectively she had an idol at that point, she definitely was able to like, it still felt like a fun night, even though she probably felt like she was the dead man walking, even though from a survivor's perspective, and I tried to tell this to her that night, is like 7 is when you make the move. Like it's going to happen tomorrow. Like just be ready for it. So I think she kind of knew going into the night that the writing wasn't on the wall. And camp that night was pretty interesting in my opinion. So we came back to no fire. So for the second night in a row, I watched Becky make fire, which was very impressive. But also something I kind of kept in the back of my mind for the next day. She made fire. I helped out. We got fire going. We did our confessionals. I think at that point, my grand master plan, which never fully came to fruition, was Tony, Becca, Becky, the 4 of us scheme to vote out Jess. At the same time, we make it obvious that we're scheming to the point where Jazzy feels uncomfortable enough to play her idol. I thought of the 2 of them, Jazzy was more likely to feel like the target was on her. Whereas Jess was more likely to be like, oh, I'm in the know. I have a vote or 2 to hold on to my idol. So I thought Jazzy would have been more trigger happy, to play her idol. At the same time, Jess would be unsuspecting of the vote. We would eliminate both idols in one fell swoop, as well as have a majority 4 at final 6. Where the plan kind of fell awry was I wasn't able to pull Becky aside and tell her about the plan. I wanted her to be the last person to be filled in, just so that she couldn't take that information and use it against me, since she was pretty much on the bottom at that point, being the 1 red versus the 6 blue. So I wanted her to be the last person to tell it. Tony, I wanted to tell right before the vote. Tony, at that point in the game, I didn't feel super comfortable filling him in on the plan too early, in that if I felt like if he had to balance the real plan with a fake plan B and a fake plan C, there was a high likelihood of something getting lost in translation and something coming out. No, like, zero offense to him. I think he played a really good game and was super loyal. I just, at that point, I didn't feel super comfortable with his ability to lie to people, because I had seen him lie to me. And so I knew that he wasn't the greatest.
When did he lie to you?
The only time he ever lied to me was after we merged. He lied to me about the Sarah vote. He said that he voted with Sarah against Forrest. And then about 20 minutes later, he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I lied to you. I actually voted with them 4-1." And I was like, "That's fine. Like, I told you to do whatever you needed to do." But, like, I kind of got the feeling when he first told me that he was lying to me. So I had gotten a read on his lying skills, and I was like, all right, I'm going to tell him tomorrow morning. Like, tomorrow morning we'll work out the plan. The vote's going to happen. It'll be perfect. Becca was the one that I did bring up the plan to. At that point, she was my, like, biggest confidant. I was talking to her about all my plans. I wanted her to feel like we wanted to do a final two. At that point, my dream final three was Becca and Tony. Thought I had a really good case against both of them. And so I wanted Becca to feel confident. I wanted her to feel like she was part of this plan. I had told her the exact plan. I was like, we're going to fake voting out Jazzy, but vote out Jess. This is going to get Jazzy to throw her idol. We're going to vote out Jess. I definitely told her that night. Then I think it all kind of fell apart. So I went to sleep, and I know Becky, Jazzy, Brandon stayed up. I think Jazzy actually ended up going to sleep. And so then it was at one point just Brandon and Becca, and even maybe Becky first awake by the fire. And so the three of them came up with the plan to vote out Jazzy.
Oh.
So they were like, we're going to vote out Jazzy. To me...
Brandon wanted to do that?
Brandon wanted to do that, yeah. To me, that's fine. Brandon told me about the plan that morning, and I was like, that's great. I was like, that's fine. I want him to think we're voting out Jazzy. That's perfect. Then if Jazzy sniffs it out, she plays her idol still. I still wanted the real plan to be Jess. And so, like, I connected with Becca after that, and I thought we were on the same plan. Like, the real plan is still Jess. Then we do our morning stuff. It's, like, kind of hard. Once everyone wakes up, it's really hard to, like, start strategizing. You're kind of just, like, cooking, and everyone's kind of in the same space. It's a little bit difficult to, like, do any strategy type stuff. So I think the last real strategy conversation was Brandon, Becca, and Becky on the fire. Wait as first up, or never having gone to sleep. I'm not really sure who had actually gone to sleep and who hadn't. I know definitely Becca got some sleep that night, hopefully. And hopefully Brandon did too, because that kid didn't sleep at all, really. And so then we got to the challenge. It was balancing like different size wood chips on a dowel. And so then the final two was Tony and I. For whatever reason, my whole body was shaking, having like not eaten or really slept in 4 days. And Tony was solid as a rock. But we had to, like, the chips that you had to grab were down on a low log, and so you had to, like, bend down to get them. And after a certain point, I was realizing that, like, Liza was giving you a lot of time to do that. And so once I started getting shaky, I was like, well, I'm going to let him try to pick up another piece before I even move. So she said, like, large piece, and I just, like, stood still. And then he, like, went down to pick one up and, like, on the transition dropped his when I, like... So that was somewhat of a strategic way to win and not, like, super honorable, but I'll take the necklace. So then I won, and, like, at Tribal, they were like, oh, do you think Cameron's a big threat? Or, well, before Tribal, we're sitting there. They're taking people off in groups of essentially 3 for confessionals at the same time, which was really helpful at that time once the group got small, because then you had 3 people occupied and groups of 4 in and out to almost have a chance to talk with each iteration, each permutation of, like, what you could have a group of 4 in. And Jess was pulled off. And immediately, I just got the vibe from Jazzy that she was down. And so I was like, Jess, to her. I just kind of, like, offered it. It was, like, a quiet little thing. And she was like, I'm definitely down. And she was like, I know that you guys might be targeting me tonight or today. We kept calling it tonight just because, like, that's how you, like, refer to it in Survivor. I kept calling it the beach and camp and stuff, too. We were in the woods. And she was like, I don't care. I'm going to vote Jess. And I was like, that's everything that I had understood about Jazzy's game and personality. I completely trust her in that moment. Brandon was there. He walked up, we told him. He was like, I'm 100% down with that. And then I had a chance to pull him aside, and I was like, do you want to do that or do you want to do Jazzy? And we confirmed that we wanted to do Jess. And then Jazzy got pulled away for a confessional, and Becca came back from her confessional, and Brandon and I expressed what just happened. Essentially, Jazzy wants to do Jess. Are you in? We have the 4 right here. She seemed like she was in. Tony was the other 4 in the original group. So we had 4 was Brandon, Tony, Jazzy, myself. Me and Jazzy said Jess. The other 2 kind of walked up. We agreed on it as a 4. So we already had 4. Then Jazzy left. Becca came in. Tony, I think, walked to the bathroom. So it was just the 3 of us. We told her the plan to vote out Jess. The real plan, vote out Jess. Made it very... I earnestly think that we made it very clear, but for whatever reason, the names are super similar.
Yeah.
And I think because she had heard 3 different real plans, my original real plan, Brandon's real plan, then this one... I just don't know if she fully knew which one was the real plan. I think she was under the impression that we were bluffing for Jazzy's benefit in the moment when I was trying to make it clear that this was the real plan. So we go to vote. They try to paint the target on me. Like, production is like, do you think Cameron's a challenge threat? Which, like, I was a little worried about at that point. So I tried to, like, brush it off. I was like, oh, they're not all going to, like, involve holding my wrist still.
That's right.
But I did feel confident to make this move. I think I said in my confessionals that, like, making the move against Jess was really risky for a lot of reasons. But I really wanted to win that first challenge that day because I think it gave me the security that if anything did go awry and they played their idols and votes kind of went haywire, it's not going to fall back on me. So winning that first challenge was like definitely part of my strategy of like, I need to win this challenge so that I have the security to make the move against both idols at that first vote. The other thing that happened before we got to tribal was, for whatever reason, when I went to do my confessional, the whole tribe just agreed to tell Becky, like, oh, like, we're going to vote for you. Like, this is it. Because that was plan A. That was the, like, real plan. And I came back and I was like, oh, you guys told her. Okay. And so then I didn't have a chance to pull her off one-on-one because what am I going to like, what's the good strategy for why I'm talking to her one-on-one when we've all told her out in the open that she's going home? Like, there was really no way for me to pull her in on that conversation, which is why I ended up going with that alternative group of Jazzy and Brandon, including them in on the vote, because there was no chance for me to talk to Becky, which kind of sucked because I know she was the last person I wanted to tell from a strategic standpoint, but it would have behooved me to have her involved in this plan, especially as we get further in the game and she's feeling more and more scorned. That said, super kudos to her to be told, hey, we're all 6 going to vote for you, and then not play your idol. Like, she must have known something was up a little bit, or at least gambled. So good play on her. I mean, that was huge. That was the other thing that really screwed me up on the next vote is, so then we go to vote. We all vote Jess. I think Becky and Becca vote Jasmine because of the conversation with Brandon at the fire. And that's the whole thing that they bring up next tribal, where they're like, Brandon told us X, Y, and Z. Cameron told us X, Y, and Z. We, like, yada, yada, yada. We can't trust them. But we sat there and told Becca the real truth. And I don't know. It was really just, that to me was the biggest mistake of the game, is not making sure Becca understood what was the real plan and what wasn't in that moment. And it's so tough. I mean, we have 3 minutes when people are being pulled away to nail down what the real plan is, and there's 4 or 5 plans going on,
and when the names are Jazz and Jess,
I know.
Come on.
And you're trying to whisper it so no one can like super hear. So I mean, that was, had Becca voted Jess with us, I don't think whatever happens at that next tribal happens.
Right.
Which, does that go well for me or not? Because then Jasmine still has an idol that needs to be flushed in some way. My plan was to never flush it at all after that. If she wasn't going to play it at Final 7, my plan was to take her to Final 4 and beat her at a challenge, which I thought I could do. But do the other people want to flush it? How does that work in terms of a strategy from there? That said, Becca doesn't vote with us. Feels like we pulled one over on her for whatever reason. It was completely non-intentional, so she's scorned. Becky realizes she has someone that she can pull in. Mm-hmm. Becky also smartly didn't play her idol, which I didn't know about. And so she pulls her in. She pulls Tony and Brandon aside and tries to work both of them. Now that myself and Jasmine have become the clear biggest threats, Luckily, again, that final 2 deal with Tony paid off in that I promised to him I was never going to lie to him. He promised to me he was never going to lie to me. He wanted to make the end. He wanted to play an honorable game. I really felt confident that he wasn't going to go with them. And so I pulled him aside. I gave him my spiel. It was that social bond there. I knew Jasmine didn't really have another chance, but I also knew at this point we were kind of galvanized in this us against them mentality. And I thought Brandon was still with us I thought he knew that he couldn't go to the end with Becky. And so I thought it didn't make sense for him to make that flip. That said, in his mind, or at least in my mind in that time, I didn't think he could go to the end with Becky, myself, or Jasmine. So he needed in 3 votes to get rid of all 3 of us. So he could take that opportunity to get rid of me, knowing Jasmine has the necklace at that point. It was the cool memory box challenge. Shout out to Jess. That was an awesome challenge. So I guess from his perspective, it made sense a little bit if his goal was to get rid of all 3 of us and sit next to Becca and Tony. So we vote Becky. I wanted to work with Becky or make something work, but at the end of the day, if someone from the Red Tribe did what she did and got to the end, it's a landslide. There's not a chance that they win. So we needed to get her out. At the same time, I was doing mental math of I also need to get out Jasmine before this is set and done. So I really need to get these people out before we get closer to the end, because Toby and Justin did too big of a job talking her up that now it's going to be really hard to argue, hey, we used her as a figurehead. It's maybe that's true, maybe that's not. Are they going to believe it? So we go to the vote. I still think Brandon's with us. The votes are red. I knew that they were going to come for me or Brandon. When the votes were me, I was okay, 2 votes. And then the 3rd vote happens, and I was I kind of looked at Tony, and he was so shocked. I was it's not Tony. And then Brandon sitting there tense and kind of smiley. And I was crap. Luckily, before the votes were read, Becky got up, played her idol. Jasmine looked at me and was oh crap, we needed to play it because we thought it was 4-2, so we didn't even think that there was a possibility that we had a chance to we didn't split it or anything. Retroactively thinking about it, if we tried to do that 2-2 split, that would have been a torturous 2-2 split. That would have been a horrible thing. So Jasmine gets up and looks at who, she was who do you think they voted for, Brandon or myself? I knew she was going to play it for me the whole time. We talked about it before. If anything pops up, I think they're targeting me. I felt pretty confident she was going to play it for me, but I didn't know how. I couldn't see Brandon. He was sitting in front of me, so I had no idea how good his poker face was. Retroactively knowing, hey, he voted for me, and if he got her to play the idol on him, that was a game-winning move potentially right there. That said, she played it on me. It was a tie vote. Becky, myself, Jasmine now are all immune. That group of 3 now are going to throw their votes on Tony. That's their only option. We had the option to vote for Becca or Brandon, and I think this is where I lost the game right here, is Jasmine and Tony looked to me. They were who do you want to vote? They gave me the decision.
Wow. In
my head, I ran through it. I mean, it's so quick. It's at tribal council. You don't have a lot of time to think about it. I was Becca is a lost cause. She's at this point a wild card to me. She won't listen to my reason. She feels I've scorned her. I cannot win her over. Whereas with Brandon, I think I could still work with him knowing that it was recognized game type of deal. We kind of, like I said, that first night, Jasmine, Brandon, and I all knew we were going to play very tough. All kept ourselves at arm's length, knew that we were going to have to make moves against each other. So I didn't really hold it against him that he made that move. And then the secondary thought to that was, okay, I could work with him if I need to. Also, he's proven himself to be much more of a challenge threat than Becca is. And at the end of the day, I'm at the final 5 with Becky and Jasmine both needing to go home before final 3. I need someone who can beat Becky at a challenge. I need someone who can beat Jasmine at a challenge if I can't do it myself. So I said we need to keep, I didn't say we need to keep Brandon, but we need to vote out Becca. And then it came back tied again 2-2. It came back tied again 2-2, which essentially... Wait, how did it work? Oh, no, we kind of talked through the outcome here we voted again and it was 3-3. How did it work? I forget exactly how it worked. We voted 3 times, but the end result was Brandon had a chance. We kind of almost had a Cerise situation of everyone being immune. If you get voted for twice, you become immune and everyone else revotes. Ultimately, what would have happened is everyone besides Brandon would have been immune because they were voting for Tony, who would have been immune. We were voting for Becca, who would have been immune. So when we voted on that vote, Brandon essentially had a chance to go up. If he voted for Tony, he was essentially sending himself home because it would have been a tie game. Mm-hmm. We would have needed to re-vote, and he's the only one eligible to go, so he has to go. Or he could
Kimmy
flip
Kappenberg.
with us. Yeah, Kimmy Kappenberg. Yeah, more of that situation, actually, not the Cerise situation. And so he came and voted with us to vote out Becca because that was the only way to save his game. In my head, that whole thing blew up in his face. In my head, this is perfect. He tried to make a move. It didn't work to the point where he almost sent himself home, and I came out making all the decisions, had an idol played on me. I thought that went perfectly. I think maybe to the jury it seemed a little differently. I also think it helped him to have voted with Becca and Becky on that vote originally because I think it kind of earned them a little bit of trust on the way going out retrospectively, like in terms of like looking at the jury and how they voted. I think him giving them kind of that chance in the game was probably better for him, even though the move didn't work out and he stayed in the game. Because ultimately, it didn't really affect him. At Final 5 and at Final 4, we had 2 huge threats. I mean, the Final 3 was essentially decided at that point. Emotionally and mentally, I wasn't necessarily quick enough to figure that out. I was pretty much a wreck at that point. After that vote, I think Jasmine broke down crying because she was so afraid that the jury and everyone in this game hated her, and we were just trying to explain that like that wasn't the case. They're just trying to like build you up, and it's so tough. You don't like, especially with the Red Tribe where we didn't really get to know a lot of them. It's like does just really feel like they like hate you, and it does really feel like these like decisions you're making are like torturous. Like at that point, Final 5 happened, and the only thing on my mind was beating Becky. Of course, it was a fire making challenge, which she had just made our fire 2 nights in a row. I was a city boy who barely got a sparks in his driveway going, so I was like not looking forward to this challenge. That said, I knew I needed to give it my all. It was raining, the like strings were like wet. It was a crazy challenge. It was an really awesome challenge. I broke through my log, got through, started fire on the first spark that I lit, which was like, I don't know how that happened. I like poured as much scraped as much magnesium and hit the spark the first time, and it went up, and that was what caught it. My one mistake was I think I made my fire like an inch or two like uncentered from the rope, so when the fire was burning, it still needed to move a little bit to catch the rope. And then the other problem was the wind was not blowing it that direction. The wind was blowing it the other direction, so I somehow needed to block it. I built my fire up pretty huge. I ran through all my wood, and they had made the decision prior that if you run out of your wood, you're out of the challenge. I had like gotten to the point where the string was all charred and everything, but it still wasn't like burning. Like the whole string turned black, but it still wasn't like cutting through. At a certain point, Tony offered to give me his wood. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to start it. Jasmine had given up, and so they both were next to me and gave me their wood. Brandon refused. I think at that point he didn't think that it was beneficial to his game to kind of tag along. Becky had gotten to the fire making station and started building her fire. Luckily, with the addition of the wood from Jasmine and Tony, I was able to burn through the rope and win immunity. The next vote that vote to me was pretty simple. The only thing there was we essentially had to babysit Becky to make sure she didn't find another idol. So the 5 of us sat in tribal council while they got everything set up for like 35 minutes, just breaking apart the logs to see if there's stuff in there. There was one log that had this like cool knot in it that like had a chunk of wood in it somehow that you could remove, and we thought that would be a really good hiding spot, so we kept checking that. We like checked all of the like tiki torches and the fences and everything. And then we like all talked about, is there going to be another idol up there? Is there going to be another idol up there? And we all did our search when we went up there. I'm sure everyone gave it their 100% search. And the funniest thing was there was one up there that none of us found, which thank goodness Becky didn't find it. When Becky went to vote, I like could not breathe because she was up there for so long. And at one point I was going to be like, Liza, is there like a statute of limitations for how long she's allowed to search up there? I didn't say anything, but I was like definitely thinking like this, should be like a time limit. But she didn't find it, luckily. And so we sent Becky home, which was huge because now I'm in a Final Four with Brandon, who at that point, I think I played a very similarly strategic game, and yet I didn't make the blunder that he made, and I also have won challenges. And I felt like I also made better connections with some of the people that were on the other tribe in Emily or Toby. Like, I did try to at least talk to them a little bit. Justin, when he was making his pitches to the tribes, he was talking to me as if I was a decision maker. He was like, you're going to be Jasmine's biggest threat. You're going to be this. You should make, And so I felt pretty confident that I like had earned their respect in terms of knowing that I had some social clout and whatnot. The only obstacle there was now voting out someone at Final Four. I think I 100% always knew that it was going to be Jasmine. I think when it came time to do it, I just like broke down. Like, it was, I'm staring at 4 people. I knew I was going to bring Tony, so I knew I wasn't going to break his heart, but like I was going to break Brandon or Jasmine's hearts, like breaking them out or voting them out this close to the end. I broke down in tears, like trying to make my decision in the different confessionals. I'm not like much of a crier, but like to try and explain like what I was feeling at that point, it's like playing Survivor, and especially like winning Survivor, was like a dream I've always had. Like, I've played some of these online games and I played an in-person game, but it like wasn't the same as this like 4-day game, and like it really felt like the real experience. And I think at that moment, or like essentially from the Becca fight on, I stopped having fun with it. Like, it was more of just like, I need to get to the end. Before that, it was like fun. It was like games. It was kumbaya. It was like challenges. It was strategic vote offs, and no one was taking it super personally. I think as soon as Becca really took that personally, and Jasmine had her breakdown, and Brandon cried about the 3-3 split when he almost sent himself home, like, I think emotions were really high, and I stopped enjoying it. And I started looking at something that has been a dream since I was like 8 years old, of winning Survivor, as like, I don't even know if I enjoyed doing this. Like, at that point, I was like really tortured of just like, did I just like ruin a dream for myself? I'm getting a little choked up thinking about it now. And so then I was like, I've done all this. I like need to get to the end. I was open about it. I told Jasmine that I was voting for her. I won the Final Four challenge as well. So I had the decision to make, which was, I thought, another impressive social moment in that there's no good reason for them to have allowed me to make that decision and not tried to force a fire making or anything like that. The Final Four challenge was like that cool like ladder challenge with the puzzles. I absolutely destroyed it. Like it was awesome. Like, I went up and I was really worried about winning this because if Jasmine got to the end, it was over. And it was a puzzle. She was good at puzzles. So like I was a little worried going into it. I think what really helped is they like let us walk up to the ladder beforehand and like showed us where the key was and like what like how you needed to do it. And instead of really listening to Liza or anything, I was counting pegs and where they were on the first 2 rungs. So when the challenge started, I essentially got the first rung and the second rung in 2 trips. I had that like pretty much down, whereas I think by the time I was done, most people were only on their 3rd or 4th rung total. So that was huge. So I won it. We talked about it. We voted out Jasmine. Jasmine told me on her way out, she like hugged me and said, I'm voting for you. Like, so I knew I had Jasmine's vote. We go into Final Tribal. I didn't really think anyone was going to give Tony a vote. I thought he played a really good game and a really loyal game, but I don't think he did anything flashier, made the social connections to earn any votes. So I knew it was myself or Brandon. In my head, I knew Brandon was getting Becky's vote. So I counted 1 for Brandon, 1 for myself if we're counting Jazz's vote. Emily was a wild card. I couldn't count on that. Neither of us had really talked to her. It was like tough to like draw that one out. I thought in my head I had Toby and Justin's votes. I thought they were challenge competitors. They like were talking about Jasmine as this huge threat, and I was essentially the one who slayed the dragon, for lack of a better term. So I thought I had their respect there. I know Justin came to me assuming I was the like second in command trying to overthrow Jasmine. So I think he knew that I had that social clout. So I thought I had Jazz, Toby, Justin, meaning, and Emily was a wild card. Even if Emily went to Brandon, that's 2, meaning I just needed to win one of Jess and Becca. And I kind of thought I had Jess's vote. She had been giving me looks as soon as she got voted out. The next tribal council, she like kind of made eye contact with me and said like, we're okay. Like, cause I like kind of gave her like an, I'm sorry, like puppy dog face almost. Cause I felt bad about it. And she said, we're okay. And I thought, having worked with her strategically and socially, you know, she came to me with all that idol information. We had a really good bond out there. And I thought she would have respected kind of the mix of social and physical game that I played. Whereas I don't know if she would have thought the same for Brandon. I mean, I really thought going into Final Tribal, like, I didn't know that I had it. I wasn't going to I wouldn't go to Vegas and bet on it, but I felt like I had the advantage. I felt like I had 4 or 5 votes out there. I felt like I played maybe an equally-ish social game to Brandon. I thought I made really good connections. Strategically, I think I outplayed him in that I made a few additional decisions. I was more aware of the idols and things, and I didn't make that kind of blunder of trying to like flip against the group and essentially being dragged to the end. And then physically, I don't think it was a competition. I won 4 individual immunities. I won all these things. So mentally, I kind of went in confidently. I think where it went awry was I underestimated how likable Brandon is.
Yes.
And like kudos to him. Like, I love the guy. He is offering to take me on his like winning trip with him. Like, he's the sweetest guy in the world. I love him. I enjoyed so much playing with him. And I was blinded to the fact that like I like this guy. Obviously they love this guy. Like, he is such a likable human being, and I put him in the underdog role, which like people love the underdog. I like helped him win this. I've only blamed myself for this whole thing, but like retrospectively thinking of this, like I really underestimated how likable he was. And like he put that on full force in the Final Tribal, breaking down, crying, singing for Justin, talking about how important the game was to him. I knew he was going to have that advantage, so I didn't want to play in the same sphere as where he was playing. Like, I couldn't cry. I did try to like show humanity and emotion and things like that, but I really was like, midway through Tribal, I was like, he's going to win not the game, but he's going to win emotionally based votes. And I don't want to try to fight that. If anything, I'm going to zag the other way and try to show that I played a better game strategically and physically, and see how that kind of lies. Definitely midway through, well, actually, it started out bad. Emily asked that question of like, do you like making girls cry or something like that?
Can I just tell you, Justin came up with that question. He was going to ask it. And I was talking to them, and I was like, oh my God, please ask that question. It's hilarious.
No,
I didn't think
hilarious.
Anyone would. I know you wouldn't think that.
Oh my
I thought
goodness.
it was so funny. I didn't think anyone would ask that. Justin came up with it, and then when she said it, I was like, "Oh no, this is awkward."
That is tough. That was
You handled
that was
it
like
very
the worst.
well.
That was like the worst moment in the game. I like because like I was saying, you have all these fears of like everyone hates you, everyone like is going to be upset about what you did. I already started to feel like I didn't enjoy what I did to get to the end, and then to have that be the first question, do you enjoy making girls cry? I was just like heartbroken of like, did I do this all wrong? Like, am I not even seeing how awful of a person I was? Luckily, I talked to her after, and she ended up voting for me. So
she did.
Clearly, it wasn't
she
a
did,
super serious question, but it didn't feel great to start off that way. And so then already I was kind of on my haunches, worried about like, okay, clearly I am the villain of these 2 potential votes here. Like, I need to win based off of merit and not based off of connections I made. So then I really tried to pivot as much as I could hard towards, these are the facts, this is what I did, this is blah blah blah, which I think ultimately, having talked with a few people, might have turned people a little off of like, I didn't talk about the connections we made or give enough people credit for things that they did in the game, and so that's kind of where it went awry. But I mean, kudos to Brandon. I mean, he made those connections, he made the flip. I honestly think making that flip to Becky and Becca, regardless of whether or not it works out, really worked for him, because I think it earned those 2 jury votes almost at no cost to himself. If anything, it put himself at an underdog position with 2 people who needed to go out in the game still in Jasmine and Becky, so that he was almost guaranteed to the end at that point, having earned a bunch of votes. I mean, he put it all out there, and he killed it in terms of like talking about his strategy of like dyeing his hair and things like that. So like going into Tribal, I felt really confident. Before the votes were read, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. It was definitely like a coin flip, and it ultimately ended up being a coin flip with 1 vote going the other way. But super happy for him. I just wanted to explain like how I mentally went in thinking one thing and mentally coming out another way, and all the credit to him because he killed it at Final Tribal.
I had the exact same thoughts, that just talking to people, I thought for sure you had it, no question. Maybe Brandon would get 2 votes.
Yeah.
And then during Tribal, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then, but I was still really shocked that he got it.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised at the end. I'm not saying like I was like, woe is me, I've lost this, but I definitely was like, I definitely went in thinking 5-2 to now it's definitely, if I win, it's 4-3. So I didn't even like flinch at the first 6 votes. I was like, it's going to be 3-3 pretty much. And now it's like, who got that last vote was the decider. So yeah, all the credit to him. I think he, like, we talked about it in the game. My favorite player ever is Todd Herzog. And I think he couldn't have played a more Todd Herzog game towards the end there, of just like going into Tribal, maybe not being the favorite, killing it at Tribal, playing like the likability card, playing the social and strategic card, and like really winning it. So like he is now my favorite Survivor winner. Brandon is. So he has surpassed Todd for
amazing.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. That was my experience. I felt really down for a few days, like I said, just from the end game was kind of sour, and then to do all that and lose, I definitely wasn't like super ready to talk about it. I feel really good about the experience now. I think the one thing that it's done for me is, I think before, my fear about going on the real show was, could I physically handle it? I get a lot of headaches. I'm really irritable when I don't have like water and things like that. Like, could I physically do it? I know that I can physically do it now, having done something similar, at least. And I'm sure it's worse when it's 40 days. But I think once I overcame that hurdle in day 2, I felt like I could go on. Your body's in like almost like autopilot at that mode. Now it's like the part that I thought I could do, which was the like cutthroat strategic game. And I was good at it. It took a really big toll on me. So I think now I've flip-flopped on why I couldn't do it. I still don't think I could do the real show.
Really?
It used to be because of the physical, and now it's because of the like emotional aspect of it.
So would you apply for the actual Survivor?
I've never done it. I think, I don't know.
I think you could do it. I think you could do well.
I might. I might. Having done this, I might give it a shot. We'll see.
Apply this fall.
Okay. You've convinced me. I might give it a shot.
Please do.
I'll request your help putting together a video.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I'm not very good at that. That's the part that's always been the biggest hurdle. But I know I've blabbed on over my time, so we can...
No, not at all. But we can wrap it up. Thanks so much for doing this.
Of course. No, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
All right. What a great conversation I had with Cam. And so funny, I'm looking at my notes I made about the season right before I started editing the show. And I have here, Brandon is the Michelle Fitzgerald. Cameron is the Todd Herzog. And that's funny for a couple reasons. One, because I have since found out that Brandon's favorite winner was Michelle. And you just heard Cam's favorite winner was Todd. But also, I had completely forgotten about what Cam said in this interview. And as I went through editing and saw all Brandon's gameplay, I realized how wrong I was about him. I thought he was just a social player, but he was very strategic. And somewhere around editing episode 9 or 10, I realized he was the Todd Herzog, and I wrote that down. And now I'm just listening to this interview again, and wow. That's funny. They both played just like their favorite players, which is amazing, but they also both played like Todd, who is a really great winner. And if you haven't watched Survivor Season 15 China, then I highly recommend doing so, even though I just spoiled it for you. Okay, so I will be back with one final podcast for this season, and that will be with the winner of Surviving Maine 2019, Brandon. So be on the lookout for that.